Hello you beautiful people. So this video is a break from the normal stream highlight videos that I make, as in today's video I'm going to be talking about my favourite photo modes. I had not considered this until Photo Mode Review suggested I made this video. And so I tried to focus on the photo modes themselves and not the worlds that they can capture. And the common theme between all of my favourites turned out to be the features that I would like to see more of in future games. So Horizon Forbidden West is a feature-packed photo mode that gives you all you need to create some great photos, even without the need of editing afterwards. And that's one of the reasons why it features on my favourite photo modes lists. So you've got all of the standards settings, which it does very, very well. Such as your role, you can hide your player, you've got your face paint, you've got your facial expressions, body poses, and if you're facing into the sun, for example, you can have light flares as well. So that's a lovely little touch. You've got your focal length, and I'm just going to get a more interesting composition. So, as I was saying, you have your focal lengths, and one thing that I really like about this is we'll go through the cameras first, but it is the depth of field. So you have your 12mm with a f-stop of 2.8, and f-stop is your aperture. And then you have your 40mm, your 180mm. So you've got all of the different photo types covered here. So there's some good lengths. And other things that you have, actually let's experiment with that a bit further actually. No. So the other things that you have, and this is something that I particularly appreciate because I do this an awful lot, and that is the autofocus. So all you have to do is just do your F3 and then you've got everything set up perfectly focused on whichever subject that you choose. And you can fine tune these as well. So with the aperture, maybe the bokeh in the background's a little bit too strong, so you can just reduce that slightly. So you can see that's absolutely clear. So what I can do is just apply a slight amount just so Aloy stands out. And again, you can fine tune this with your distance as well. So that's one thing that I find a great function and earns its place on my list. You also have the brightness, and you can go both ways, bright and dark. On top of that, you've got your exposure levels as well. And it's quite a extreme range as well, so you really can sculpt the picture that you want to have. And then you have your colorizations, which is the developer's term for filters. And they are quite some striking filters as well. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because they've included the intensity slider, which I feel, if you're going to use filters, this is an essential part of filters. Because having something like this, you're very committed to the particular filter. Whereas being able to just use it to change the style, I think is a far more user-friendly and worthwhile tool to have. Other things that you have on here, which I feel are essential, if I can find, is the rule of thirds. And that's something that you need for composition. I mean, it would be nice if you could have the golden ratio and so on, but the rule of thirds is generally a very easy composition tool to use. So it's nice that that's included in there as well. And another thing worthy of mentioning is the logo as well. So you can just place it and you've got some set positions for it if you want to do a nice little poster. So you may be surprised by my first example, because Session doesn't actually feature a photo mode. What it does have is a video editor which you can use to capture some great pictures, and that's why it features on my list. So being a video editor, there are a few more steps than a photo mode to capture your shots, as you need to use keyframes to adjust your settings and then set the montage view on to see the finished result. But once you're used to these, you'll be taking pictures in no time. So one of the great things that you can do with this is you can set your, let's just do the camera first, get the exact moment by using the fast forward and rewind functions on this game. Other great functions that you have is the time of day, and again using keyframes, so you can set it by the hour, and you can do anything from nighttime through to late evening, all the way back through to the morning. That's actually a really interesting light, so I'm going to stick with that. I rather like that colour, so that's the keyframe. And as I mentioned earlier, to apply the effect you need to use the montage view, and there we are. So other functions that you've got is just the, let me see, if I go back to the free camera, when I say you have freedom of movement, I'm talking Matrix level freedom of movement here. It is such a refreshing change, and another reason why this game features so heavily on, well, earns its right to be on my list. So let's go back to my character. Oops. I'm just going to move the camera up so it's roughly there. And what you can do is just to make sure that your shot is framed nicely, then you just remove all of the, I do need to raise that a little bit, so you just remove the HUD, and then you can see what's going to feature in there. So I'm rather liking this. I'm probably going to move it slightly across, because I rather like the lamp, and I also like the clock tower in the background. So now I've got that in shape, I'm going to show you the other functions. So similar to the time of day, you can set your depth of field, and these can be adjusted in increments of 100, by 10, and by single amounts. So for depth of field, I'm just going to drop it right back to 100, and then go down to 10, get the rough area, so about there, and then I'm just going to go up in single increments. And I'm looking at his back foot. You can see it's slightly blurred there, so one more press, and that's how you set your depth of field. You can do the same with your field of view, even though I'm happy with this. So that just leaves me to remove the menu and get the screenshot, and that is Session. Gran Turismo 7 actually features two photo modes. The first being the one most people are familiar with, due to being easily found on the main menu, which is called Escapes. So in this mode, it will allow you to choose a location. So let's say the evening sun, and we will choose just a nice racetrack, for example. And what it will allow you to do is, once you've chosen your car, you can place it anywhere in the screen on the track. You can rotate it to whatever setting you wish. You can adjust your steering angles, and that it's really all that's worth talking about when it comes to that one. It is a great function if you like that sort of thing, but I feel that where this really comes into its own is the second photo mode, which is what I'm going to cover in greater depth. So this photo mode's earned its place on my list, and it's one where you can find when you're watching replays. So in campaign mode, you're automatically taken to the replay. So I'm going to show you how to get to it for your online races before explaining why it's made it to my list. So to get to the online replays, you click on Showcase, go down to My Items, go across to Replays, and then select the one that you want to watch. And I'm going to choose Daily Races because it's the first one there. So once you've selected it, click on Replay. Now we've got to go through the started animation, and we're just going to wait for the 3 pips. But once the race has started, you can now press any button to bring up the replay menu and select Race Photos. And this is the photo mode. So you have your different cameras, and they are literally different lenses on them as well. And you have different positions which are adjustable as well once you select them. And then you've got your cockpit mode. But the one that I really appreciate is the walk mode. And this gives you ultimate freedom of camera, and it's something that just makes a world of difference in all photo editors. And I feel that with photo modes, they should all give you this level of freedom. When I can climb exceptionally high, because that is a very comfortable limit. I can walk around the entire track as well, and it just really allows you to be tremendously creative in your shots. So we're going to go with this one because it's as good as any other. And to access all of the controls, you just prepare your one, and that takes you to the camera mode. So you've got your aperture settings, which are as standard. You've got your exposure corrections, so you can go down or up. And one that you don't often see in a photo mode is shutter speed. So you can go from anywhere from 8,000th of a second to a whole second. And that will create your different blur modes or sharpness, depending on which way you wish to go. You can also set your aspect ratio. You can adjust the orientation between landscape and portrait. You also have the grids that you can turn on and off. I personally prefer to keep them on. And then you have your detailed settings as well. And this is where you can adjust the different controls. You have your ray tracing, whether you wish to have that turned off, and also you have render quality, of which you can set to extra high, as I have. Other notable things that you have in here are actually under the effects, and this is a very strong control. So you've got your white balance there, your color cast correction, and again exposure correction. You can create presets. You've also got your film grain on there, the different mode of it, your vignette strength, vignette size. So these are all standards. This I particularly like, and let's see if I can find a glare. No, there isn't actually one on here, but every so often you'll take a perfect shot, but you can't see the driver because the sun's shining on the windscreen too much. So this is the tool that you can use to take that out. Another great tool on here is the masks. So say for example, you can set it that it only adjusts the backgrounds. So all of the cars will not be affected by this filter. And then you can just go through the different filters. You're changing the background, but the cars remain the same. So if we set a monochrome hard, for example, and then you can dial it in by, again, adjusting the filter strength. So you can get some very, very interesting settings on that. You also have your S-curve as well, so you can adjust your brightness, your contrast, your highlights. Then you have your midpoint corrections and your black corrections. And again, you can set it to default if you went a little bit too far. And I feel that such a strong photo mode as this has most certainly earned its place in my top photo modes. Ghost of Tsushima made my list because it handles all of the basics well, whilst introducing some great features to inspire you to get creative. So, you've got all of the standards, so your focal length, your roll, which you can use for some dramatic effects. I am going to keep it at 0. Actually, no, I'm just going to straighten it out at -2. You have your depth of field, and they go in the usual aperture settings. And then you can set your focal distance as you would expect. We're going to go for quite a deep depth of focus. Color grading are all of your filters. And again, you can set the intensity of it. Which, as I've mentioned before, I think is absolutely essential if you're going to introduce color gradings. Now you may notice that this is quite dark, so I'm going to adjust the exposure and then adjust the contrast. I can't reduce that too much. So we're going to play around with those. And as you can see, it's very fluid and they have some wonderful effects. But the reason why I chose this is all of the other additions to the tool set. So you have particles, which you can change between red leaves, yellow leaves, bamboo leaves. You have orange, you have green, you have cherry blossom, you have pampas pollen, which is quite pretty actually, ashen embers for the more dramatic. You have fireflies, dragonflies, butterflies, crows, which I am going to stick with actually. I'm going to drop the intensity of them greatly. I only want a few coming by, maybe a bit more than that. And there's a brilliant function on here as well, which is animated environments. So you can just stop right there, so your birds are in flight, you've got all of your image there. Now, other things that you're able to do is you can adjust the wind speed, which I'm going to slow that down quite a bit. You can even change its direction, so if you look at the plants, which I feel is something that I would never have thought of, and it is such a brilliant addition to the photo mode. You have the amount of clouds in the sky. You also have the time of day. So if you're wanting something a little bit better than night time, then you can adjust it any time of the day, and you'll have the sun rotate round as it would do at those particular times as well, as you can tell on Jin's face there. So let's just reset that, and you can do that on any... Oh gosh, yeah, that's not right. You could do that on any of these settings. You can reset them back to defaults. You also have a choice of weathers as well, so you can go for fog, heavy fog, which again is quite cool. I'm going to stick with a light fogless, I think, for this one. And with Jin, you can hide him, you can make him muddy, you can cover him in blood, or you can have him as standard. You've got your different emotions. If he's wearing a helmet or a mask, you can turn them on or off. And if you have your sword unsheathed, then you can also put a glint on there as well, which is a really nice touch. You can set your aspect ratios. And you can set stamps. Now, unfortunately, the stamps don't actually move. And I feel that that's upsetting, really. It would be really nice to have that ability on there. And then the final option on here is the music. So you may be wondering, why adjust the wind speed, the particles, the clouds, the animated environment, the weather and things like that? And it's because of the tracking shot, which is effectively keyframes. So what you can do, if you want a dramatic zoom in, for example, you just set your keyframes, do all your movement, and then when I replay it, it will make a interesting picture for Instagram. Just a short animation. And you can do far more than what I've just shown you here, but I just wanted to give you a demonstration of why Ghost of Tsushima's photo mode deserves to be on my top list. I haven't bought the second game, so I couldn't choose that for this list. However, if its photo mode is just as good as this one, then I'm certain it deserves to be here. The Spider-Man's photo mode handles all of the basics perfectly while also introducing some more features. So let's have a look at the photo mode. I mean, one thing that I can't demonstrate here, but I truly did appreciate, is the fact that if I was on one side of a wall, for example, I could actually lift the camera up and go to the other side of the wall to take a photo of Spider-Man. And I felt that that was most certainly a feature that's worth mentioning and can be utilised an awful lot. But the other thing that I feel definitely deserves a honourable mention is this here, which is the range of depth of field in front of your character, which is not something I've actually seen that much, if at all. I think this is the only game I ever noticed it. So when you're doing your aperture, you can really set it on where you want the picture to stand out, and then just adjust your aperture settings. Other features that I particularly like is the ability to change your suit without having to go out of camera mode. As you can see, I've collected a few of them, but not that many. So we'll stick with the advanced one. You've got your tilt. You also... no, I will stick with the subtlety. But you've got your hero visibility. You can turn your enemy visibility on and off. You've got your weather on and off as well. Other things that I really liked is, again, a filter that allows you to adjust it. I hope some game developers are watching this and taking note, because it really does make a massive difference. You have your film grain, which personally I think should always be defaulted to 0, because on Last of Us streams I'm always forgetting, because I only play it once a week, and that can have a negative effect on my pictures. You can also adjust the sharpening as well, but that's not something I'd particularly look into. And when you're using the selfie mode, then you can do your emotes as well. The other reason why this game has concreted its position in my list of favourites is the fact that you've got lighting modes, and there are 3 different lights that you can have as well, which is fantastic. You've also got your natural light, which you can customize as well, and you also have different types of lighting. So you have your spherical light, but you can also do your spotlight as well. So you can set your different lighting effects, and if you wish to do that black background one, then these spotlights are invaluable for that type of photo. So you just need a dark background, turn your
and brightness all the way down, contrast all the way down, and then, I mean all the way up, and then you will be able to take those. You've got your different intensities as well, so you can get it to just the level you wish. You have your colour you can choose from. We'll go with bringing out the blues of the suit, I think. Although that's affecting the whites a bit too much, but that doesn't matter because you can adjust the intensity of it. You can make it more specific. You can also adjust the softness, and you've got the distance as well. And there is also the ability to bring your the spotlight right in as well. And that is why I absolutely love the photo mode for Spider-Man Returnal. This is another game with a feature-packed photo mode, which gives you everything you need to create great pictures, so you don't even need to post-edit them in, say, Lightroom or Photoshop or whatever your photo editor of choice is. So, things that I particularly like about this is you have your global light intensity, you can adjust its rotation as well, and then you have your lights as well. So these are spotlights, so very similar to Spider-Man as we've just seen. You could also do two of them as well. So you have your different intensity on that. Not gonna lie, I am not 100% sure how to affect the second light's rotation, so we're just going to stick with the one because I rather liked that effect anyway. So you also have, if I can find it, under effects, so you've got bloom, which works better on lights. You also have your global fog density, so you can really go atmospheric if you wish. And the other thing that I wanted to point out is the gradients. And this is a function that I didn't know I needed until I saw it. So I'm going to put it on its highest intensity so you can see the effects. So the gradient color here we have is Fog and Abyss, which is blue and cyan. We're going to go with Orca and Abyss, so orange and cyan, and that will hopefully be enough of a contrast in colours for me to demonstrate what they mean by gradient rotation. So we can do left and right, you can set it up on a corner, you can set it up top and bottom, and then once you've found exactly what you're looking for, which I would say about there, you can adjust your intensity, and it just adds a little bit of colour into your shadows and your highlights. And the last thing to note, which I've not seen anyone do better, is the logo positioning. So you can set your logos and you've got full movement. You can place it exactly where you want to have it. So for example, we've got a nice almost rock looking thing in the background, which is a great place because of the contrast to put it. You can adjust the scale just to fit the framing. Kudos to the developers, and it's all of this attention to detail that has earned this game its position in my favourite photo modes.
I hope you enjoyed this video. I stream every Friday 8 PM British time, and I'd like them to become a place where virtual photographers can come together to share ideas and techniques. However, if you just want to watch my streams, then you're more than welcome to join too. So have a great week, and remember, we say goodbye so we can say hello again. Goodbye.